tutorial time! Get your basic brushes, it's tutorial time! Lesson's gonna show you how to paint your stuff! Starting in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1!
Welcome, paint addicts, to the World Eaters tutorial. Okay, so after dual priming, which if you didn't know is priming black and then white over it, we went ahead and sprayed scarlet red, which still in my opinion is probably the brightest, most vibrant red that Vallejo makes, and it's really nice as you can see. And we're just spraying it all over the model and getting good coverage. It's pretty transparent, so even if you spray underneath where the areas are black from the initial black priming, it won't affect it too much. You still get a little bit of shadow going on. Once the base coat was done, I didn't like the lack of shadows in there. Not for my taste anyway. So I decided to grab some burnt umber and darken up some areas. Another good choice if you're a layer person is to layer in very thin down green, because green and red will make brown, so you can do that. Next, we're going to mix 3 drops of dead white and 1 drop of scarlet, so we can make pink. Yes, you can grab squid pink, but I like to make the colors for extreme highlights out of some of the original base color, because you get nice mixture there. Sometimes the pre-made pinks could be weird, and you think, why are we using pink to edge highlight on a World Eater Corn Berserker? It may look weird at first, but once everything comes in, like when on the shoulders you have the gold trim covering it, the pink edging actually looks a lot more natural than orange. You know, find something in real life like an apple or something that actually reflects orange. You're not going to find it because it's unnatural. It looks good on tabletop miniatures and stuff like that. This is just my way of doing it, and do whichever way looks good for you. Now we begin the first step of the gold, and take whatever gold you're going to use as your final color and mix it with brown You can use the colors that I have here if you have them. If not, just whatever gold you're going to use, and a dark brown, or if you have a reddish brown, like a tannish brown, use that. Now I'm going to base coat the loincloth. Yeah, I'm using Deneb Stone, an out of production color, but if you can't get that, just try to find some kind of off-white or mix a khaki with a very light gray, and don't go on to the next step until you get it uniform. I know it's out of production, I shouldn't have used it, but it's what I had at the time. Now we're going to hack some cloth using Secret Weapons Violet Pigment. And this we're just applying dry. You want to use a brush that you don't care about mashing up, because doing it this way is very brutal to your brushes. So what you're doing is taking the dry pigment and mashing it into the shadow areas and then feathering it out. And we'll actually clean up with a wet brush and take some of that off the edges and things like that. The thing about the pigment is that it's not permanent until you varnish over it. So here I am with the wet brush cleaning up some of the areas, getting the edges, all that good stuff. It's pretty flexible stuff to use. Once everything looks good, varnish your model and wait for it to dry before continuing to the next step. Now we're painting everything that is going to be black or silver with German gray. Again, we're using German gray instead of black because we're going to go over this with an oil wash, and if it's black already, you can't put a wash over black and hope to do anything. So we're using almost black. And now I'm mixing German gray and dead white. Yeah, if you look on the palette, it looks a lot like cold gray or Codex gray. You could use those, but then again, it's just like when we were doing the edging on red, I like to use the base color and mix it just because I think it actually looks better. And don't forget to use the side of the brush for hard edges. It's a lot easier than trying to get the very tip of the brush on the edge of something. Alright, time to dirty up the gold with good old smoky ink from Game Color. This is, I don't know, it's kind of an ink, it's got grains in it, and I don't know if, at first I thought maybe it's an old paint or something, but it seems that every bottle is like this. And it's really good for adding oil streaks on metal, things like that. Or for this purpose, we're just trying to muck up the gold. We don't want it to be too nice in the shadows. We're going to come back and re-highlight, but I just wanted certain areas to look unclean. I really like what they did for the artwork in the book, or how they originally painted this model in the Dark Vengeance starter guide, and they made these little demon heads look like they were fleshy, so this is my take on it. For the next highlight, we're just going to add a drop of dead white to the previous mix, get that in there, and just start hitting upper areas where you think the light's hitting. Use your light to tell you where the highlights are supposed to be. That's the best way to do it. And now we're just using pure dead white just to catch glints and do the final highlights on these little flesh areas. On these bone areas, I wanted to do a slight wet blend. So if you have some kind of drying retarder and another brush, keep two brushes. So one brush, we're actually going to apply the smoky ink into the shadow areas that we want. Then we take another brush and kind of wipe it away. I know I'm pretty much halfway out of frame there, but that's what you're going to do, is you're kind of going to cover 3/4 of what you're trying to blend up. And then you're going to take your other brush and blend it away, or basically just wipe it away, and some of the smoky ink will stain the area, so you get a somewhat of a quick blend. This is the two brush method. Holding the other brush in your mouth is pretty much what I do. Now we're going to start bringing back some of that shine to the gold using Vallejo Model Air Gold. This, you're just trying to concentrate on things that are in the upper quarter that are going to catch light from the top down. This first step, you'll start to see that gold really pop. You can pretty much do everything on the shoulder trim. Just make sure that if there's a rivet or something, don't cover that up. Leave some of that smoky ink wash around there. And we're not trying to be uniform with it. We kind of want it to look like certain areas might have rubbed and got polished, but in the shadows, it's very dirty looking. All right, and on to silver. And I decided I wanted to kind of cheat it. I was more concerned with how the brass or the gold was going to turn out. I went straight to the highlight color, which is chrome, and base coated all the silver areas with chrome. For the leather, I went with extra opaque heavy brown. This is a pretty nice color. Again, you can re-highlight some areas. You're going to see that I didn't do 3 colors on everything on this model because it's so detailed, and I know there's a lot of people out there that just want to get these guys painted up and don't want to put 3 colors on everything that's on the model. So this was one of the areas. Silver was also another area that has been kind of sped up on, but I think the overall looks right. We really want that red Corn Berserker color to come out. That and the brass. That was my main concern. Now we're going to edge highlight the loincloth. Again, we're going to try to use the side of the brush as much as possible. If you can't, take a deep breath and go at it, get some of these edges. But for this model, I didn't find it really too hard. Not a lot of your models will have loincloths, but if they do, here's a way to paint them. Oh yeah, here's the final highlight, and we're gonna mix the base gold with your brightest silver, or here I got VMA chrome and gold mixed 1-to-1. You're gonna wanna really just hit the edges. If you overdo it, you're gonna lose the contrast in your gold from all the previous steps. So you really just want to hit the edge, maybe touch a little area, maybe pointy areas like we have it on the chest and things like that, just to bring those out. You'll see the metallic effect just pop. It gets ridiculous. That is my secret recipe for gold. I love doing those 3 colors for gold. Or was it 4? It's like 5 stages, I think. I think it works for gold or brass in this case, and you can change the hues of it just by changing that smoky ink wash to mix it with green or something like that. All right, we're going to be doing a little bit of source sliding. People like it. I don't know why, but this is how I do it when people request it be done. You need some good airbrush control to hit these areas, especially like eyes and stuff. And we start off with just doing white, and you're just trying to dust it around the area. Just pretend that it's going to be a white light. Don't get too carried away. I find that source lighting is done better if it's very small. Now I go over it carefully with Freak Flex Teal Tint. If you have any of the Vallejo inks, these could work too, but I would thin them down and go very slowly getting your layers on so that you don't make it drip. Freak Flex tints are completely transparent and will show highlights and shadows right through them. That's why I chose those. You know, teal looks good over the red, or looks good next to the red. You're seeing a new measurement now. 1 drop of dead white and 1 brush of teal tint. What I did is I had a drop of dead white, dipped my brush in teal tint, kind of wiped it off, and then mixed that into the white. So we're not using just pure white, but what we're using that for is to go back over where the source of the lighting is coming from. The eyes, the top of those circles. Now we're getting ready for the oil wash, which means we have to apply a gloss varnish all over the model. Now we're going to apply the oil wash. And how do you know it's thin enough? Well, it'll act the way you want it to act. If it's not lining everything exactly how you like it, if it's going on a little too thick, then you thin it. It's one of those things that you just kind of eyeball and you know if it's working well or not. Now it's cleanup time, and what we use to thin the oil paint, what I use is mineral spirits. Some of you guys overseas call it white spirit. It's dependent on where you're from. Using that and a cotton bud to clear the upper surfaces, and I like a cotton bud because it tends to leave the very tight details alone. Just kind of glides over it. It's not narrow enough to fit in there. If you do need to get in narrow areas because something looks weird, you can just use your brush, dip that into the mineral spirits and clear that out. Again, oil is kind of like pigment. It's not permanent until you go over it with varnish.